pleasure to have you. And just a couple of things, and talked to Bob yesterday about this. You can't assume that the listeners know. Just give them a context as much as possible. So
we'll ask.
Yeah, we'll ask, but that's just keep that in mind. Don't assume that they even know what a CO is. Let's say.
Right. That's what I said. Joe helped me out the last time with that.
Yeah. Exactly.
The other thing I want to tell you, I do have Joe's original book when I first met him. Autographed the first day I met him.
Well, we have our books here too.
Oh, we have ours too, but teaching me how to sell.
Oh, this is going to be fun.
All right, this is going to be awesome.
Okay.
All right, you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
So, Laura, we usually cover cases in the Ivy League, and today we have the pleasure of talking to two Ivy League of law enforcement. Okay. Joe Pistone is best known for Donnie Brasco, a book about his 6-year undercover infiltration into the New York mob, which became a hit 1997 film starring Johnny Depp. You want it, Miami?
Oh, I don't even have my.
You want to take it? Get your glasses on. Oh my God! I can't take her.
I'm so in awe.
Can't take her anywhere.
You can keep
reading. Oh, I'll keep reading. So at roughly the same time, Bob Starkman was an agent for U.S. Customs, seizing huge loads of cocaine off the streets of Miami. He also cracked down on money laundering as part of Operation Greenback. He took on networks run by super violent and powerful cartel members. More recently, and hot off the press, Bob Starkman has written Inside Both Courts about his law enforcement career and lifelong love of basketball, and a lifelong love of basketball, both as a player and later as a coach. We have the honor of having both Bob and Joe here with us today. Guys, want to introduce yourselves, please?
Joe Pistone, a.k.a. Donnie Brasco, retired special agent, Federal Bureau of Investigation, 27 years.
Bob Starkman still, and retired federal agent. Previously, I was a correction officer, also a college basketball coach, Broward College, and a few other stops on the way, and we're here together.
We can't tell you.
May I add, he's in the Florida Hall of Fame as a basketball coach.
Oh, right.
All right. And he actually knows a few people we know. We reached out. We have to do a shout out to some of we went to a big basketball high school, and Bob knows some Michael Jarvis and
Pat Ewing,
some of the coaches we know. So,
Ramil Robinson went there at the same time.
Big players went to our high school, so we are very impressed. We are very honored to have you here.
So, how did you guys meet?
So yeah, we actually know, but we'd love our listeners to hear, because when we heard it was an undercover school, we didn't even know that existed. So Bob, do you want to tell us about how you met Joe?
Well, I was required to go to undercover school, more so for the operation, working in Operation Greenback, more as a manager of an undercover operation. And a former partner of mine said, "Hey, you want to meet Joe Pistone? We're in this classroom." I said, "Yeah." So I get up, I go in the back, and I meet Joe. He's waiting to come on next, I believe, as the next speaker or instructor. And I said, he introduced, he says, "I'm Joe." I said, "Yeah, I'm Bob Starkman." I said, "Man, you look a lot bigger in the book." He goes, "Glad to effing meet you too." That kind of started our relationship. And then another funny part, living in Florida, you get the worst allergies and sinuses. And on my desk, I had like Flonase, I had antibiotics, tissues, you name it. The only thing I didn't have was the Jewish penicillin chicken noodle soup, And Joe said, "Hey, what is that stuff?" I go, I got a sinus infection. I went through the whole thing. He goes, "Yeah, I don't feel too good either." So I said, "Hey, would you like some? I could go fill it up, with, I joke, I say halftime, being a basketball coach, but during the break." And I gave it to him. And then he starts talking. He says, "Why did you come to this school?" I said, "Well, I heard at the previous schools you give out an autographed book." I was kidding. And sure enough, during the break, not halftime, Joe came back with an autographed book for me. So that's where our friendship began. And then we spent, I think it was a week or whatever it was, he's instructing.
School was a week.
Right. And, just doing practical scenarios, all the different types of undercover work, and just, the nuances of it. And just friendship started then.
Tell them your review of the school.
Oh, actually, I have a copy. It's in my book. He actually did the review. I saved it, and I was able to take a picture of it. It was very interesting. We joke about it because, me being Jewish and him being Italian, I had to give a scenario of how we were going to smuggle drugs in. So I used to work at a bagel store when I was in college back in Queens. And I said, we're going to smuggle it on the night route, where you have the Bialys and the everything bagels, and it stunk to high hell in there, and I figured we could put it in there. And he probably thought I was kidding at first, but it actually was probably a good idea. And we just went on from there, and we learned a lot about each other, and we would meet for coffee after that a few times. And, one of the funniest stories, I said to Joe, I said, listen, I got this place. They make the best calamari. So, okay, let's go. I was right next to the place where we had our mail.
You can tell he's not an Italian because, if you're an Italian, you don't say calamari. It's calamad.
Okay. Well, however you say it, I take him to the place. It was right, like I said, it was right next to the mail drop we had for our undercover operation. And we sit down. I order it, and, here I am. I'm with Joe Pistone, He's sitting with mobsters, breaking bread, meeting the worst of the worst. We sit down, food comes out. Joe takes a bite. He goes, it's frozen. That was the last time I ordered food.
You stick to the matzo ball soup and the corned beef.
Well, now
we'll
get into it later, but I'm actually I've been blessed. I'm cooking all the recipes Joe saved over the years from his boys, So
you guys have to send us those recipes, okay? I mean, I bet they're really good.
He hired a Jew to be his agent, so it's going to cost you.
So, Joe, give our listeners a context of what was happening, with mob activity in New York, at the time that you infiltrated it. So give us a little context.
Well, back in the day when I infiltrated the mafia was at its height, and they actually controlled the U.S. Nothing moved in the country without the approval of the mafia. Any truck that went anywhere, if you bought an article of clothing, you were contributed to the mafia, because there was a tax on everything that went back to the mafia in some way, shape, or form. And back in those days, they had, they controlled most of they controlled a lot of the unions. They controlled the construction industry. They had a hand in Las Vegas. They controlled.
This was about 1990. I mean,
70s.
I'm sorry. This was 1976. That was the first
late 70s and 80s. And they also, unfortunately, controlled politicians and judges and some people in law enforcement. So, as I said, they were they were the criminal element, the criminal group that controlled the country.
And was it your idea to infiltrate, and how did you prepare for that?
Well, actually, I had just done a year and a half undercover operation where I had infiltrated a car theft ring that was stealing high-priced automobiles up and down the East Coast. And after that year and a half, I come back to New York, and there's actually my supervisor, a gentleman by the name of Guy Barato, who had the idea to get an operation going and see if we could infiltrate the mob. And basically it was because they controlled all the hijackings in the city, and hijackings of high value loads.
Do you guys hear that?
Yeah, that's my wife's phone. We're going to turn it off.
All right, no problem.
That's as far as tractor trailer loads of high value pharmaceuticals, some types of any kind of commodities, and these loads were worth $8 to $10 million, and they were losing a lot. And so the idea was to see if we can infiltrate the individuals that were either fencing the loads or the hijackers. But it was all controlled by the New York Mafia.
Gotcha.
And that's basically what the operation was about.
But you infiltrated as a jewel thief, basically. So can you tell us a little bit about what you did to prepare for that?
Yes. Well, when you go undercover, you need a profession. So we decided a jewel thief because you can't go in with a profession that consists of violence.
So you can't go in as a hitman because that would.
Yeah, exactly. Because they're gonna, if you infiltrate, you're gonna be expected to hit somebody. So a jewel thief, and not only that, you operate alone. And if I was lucky enough to infiltrate, I could bring around diamonds, precious gems that I got from the government, and say that I did a score at the airports, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what I was. I went to school. I went to Zale, Zale Diamonds.
Wow, that's so interesting that you became a gem.
Yeah, they had a course. So I took that course, and when I became proficient in, pretty much where I can talk about diamonds and precious gems. And then from there, then I had to go out and rent an apartment, buy a car. And none of this operation was done with context. In other words, we didn't, I just went out and did it like I was a normal citizen that needed to rent an apartment, went out and bought a car, ordered whatever he had to order, and just start hitting the streets and hopefully get involved with individuals. But, I did that for like probably 6-7 months, and I didn't have any real contacts, because what we did was we had bars and restaurants targeted that I was supposed to go in,
where they were hanging around, kind of.
Where the bad guys were.
Yeah.
So, and after about 7 months, I was lucky enough to strike up a conversation with a guy, and it went from there.
I just want to say, if anyone really, I want to suggest to our listeners that they listen to your podcast, Deep Cover, because I listened to the entire thing. And it's
did?
Yes, I listened to the entire thing, and I just want to tell anyone who wants to really go deeper into your story that it's fascinating. It's fascinating.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I suggest anybody who wants to take a deep dive into the story really listen to that podcast.
Deep Cover, the real Donnie Brasco.
Yeah, it's really, really good, and it's very in depth.
I just started recording the second season the other day.
Oh, so. Yeah.
Nice.
Well, I'm looking forward to it.
Well, thank you.
And
Bob, and so
let's cut to Miami.
Yeah, let's cut to. She's dying to get to Miami.
I'm dying to get to Miami. Here.
I was actually just there about a month ago. I love it. Oh, I love Miami. But
I'm fascinated with what was going on in Miami in the 80s and 90s. I moved there in I guess 89.
And we just pulled up the Time. There's a Time magazine cover that says,
the most dangerous city.
Yeah, is
1981.
Miami the most dangerous city in America? This is 1981, and that refers, to the huge amounts of cocaine that were just pouring into Miami.
Well, that was
and all the violence,
the Dadeland shooting, and then you had the Time magazine, and then you had the Miami River cops in 1985. So there was just so much violence in Miami, and maybe you can speak to what was going on in Miami in the 80s. I mean, I think people know about that, but they don't, you hear about it and you see it in movies, but what was really going on in Miami in the 80s?
I transferred to Miami in August of 85.
Right. So you were there right in the middle of it.
Yes. A couple months before I came down, like unofficially, it was almost like going on a visit to a college, like a scholarship. And we went out to work with a few of the guys, just saw what it was like, met some of the bosses. I remember we stayed in a hotel. I remember picking up the Miami Herald, and the headlines were like river cops or something. And they were finding bodies floating on the Miami River, and all of this started to get exposed. And I don't know. I guess watching Miami Vice and seeing what this job was really like, I transferred. Came down here in '85. I remember it was August of '85. I remember distinctly. August 25th. Get off the plane, check in a hotel. I just came down with my old partner at the time, Nick Jacobellis. Came down here. Our wives were still back home. We check into the office. They tell us, go to the range, qualify with your weapons. Here's a set of keys. Take the car. See you in a week. Learn Miami, which is pretty cool because it's similar to my correction experience. You know, you learn the job that way.
Right.
I tell a joke. We go to the range. It's so hot. It's about 105 degrees. I come back. I see this little Cuban restaurant. And I see like that Gatorade bottle, you know, the water outside with the paper cups. And I remember Lieutenant Castillo on Miami Vice always taking a shot of, you know, the Cuban coffee.
Yeah.
And I ordered them with my broken Spanglish, as I tell everybody. And for the next week, I had the worst case of my stomach. Like it went right through me. It was bad. So that was my experience. But, you know, we started working and seeing what it was like. I mean, it was, you know, a couple weeks, one of the other agents made a case, and it was like 300 kilos. You know, back then in New York, you know, you get 2 to 5 kilos. It's pretty big. Yeah. And I'm like 300 kilos. You know, this is before cell phones.
Give us a sense of what that, like, what's the volume on that? I think that's like it's hard to conceive of that amount of cocaine.
300 is nothing. Wait till you get to the 1,000 kilos. Oh. It's like mind-boggling. It's just like bricks and bricks. You know, you look like you're in Home Depot, you know, looking at the different bricks to use for your garden.
Right.
But the hardest part was, you know, when you're thinking, you know, you like to believe everybody's, you know, straight and on the up and up. And I don't want to say you're naive, but you believe guys took this job and, you know, whether you're a cop, an agent, whatever it is, you know, for the right reasons. And then I remember watching Miami Vice, and Don Johnson said something that made so much sense. He said, in Miami, you can't tell the good guys from the bad guys.
Yeah.
And that was the thing that was really scary. And especially, you know, anybody could have a weapon in Miami. So, you know, you're making a vehicle stop, or you're going on a vessel, you know, even, you know, at the seaports, you don't know who has a gun and who don't. You don't know who's good and who's bad. So you always have to keep that in the back of your mind. And I think being a correction officer was one of the things that really helped me, you know, to further my career in customs, just by dealing with inmates, knowing they're bad, expect the unexpected, and, you know, hopefully nothing will happen, and use your brain, you know. But just moving on, you know, just seeing all the volume of dope and the amounts is just beyond belief.
We just lost our light. We're not going deep. We're not going deep undercover. You want to just hit the overhead lights?
You sure?
Yeah. You're going to really see. That was the flattering light, you guys. Now
there you go.
We can't hide anymore.
That's all right.
Sorry about that, Bob.
No, so, you know, it's just the difference, like, you know, when they say the cocaine capital of the world, and just like everything, you know, you had so many different, you know, organizations operating, and, you know, one of the biggest problems until they try to come to like some type of format to fix it was like, you know, we could be sitting on a house. When I mean sitting on a house, surveilling a house or tailing a bad guy. And you don't know, like there's been times I've been followed by the FBI, or, you know, they were following the same suspect, or the guy we were meeting with, an exchange. You know, it's just, you had to really be on your feet.
Yeah.
And I was very fortunate as my career moved on, where I started bringing in the local cops to work together. So we had every angle covered. We had, you know, we had the Dennis Gavalier's group from Broward County. He had great cops with him, Bert Fashard and Billy O'Hara, and just so many good guys. And then we started working with Metro Dade, that covers, you know, Dade County with, I remember the lieutenant was Russ Kubik, Tommy Williams, Tommy O'Keefe, just on, and Coral Gables Police with their group with Wayne Harris. It was, you know, we formed a good team, and it was kind of like basketball, you know, and it's like, it was so good to have every angle covered.
I know Laura and I are going to step all over each other.
No, I mean, I would just think that I think it would be hard with the temptation with that much money available. And I mean, I moved to Miami in the late 80s, and that's one thing that struck me.
Laura's got a little larceny in her soul.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
But I mean, one thing that struck me moving there from Boston was just the amount of, I guess, drugs and money that were just everywhere. Even in the late 80s. I mean, it was just everywhere.
Well, like I
The
said, when
money, the cars, I mean, in just such abundance.
well, there was so much, and that's how you always knew when there was, the cocaine was getting through because of the price. When the price went down, I mean, there's more product.
Right.
And when the price went up, they were doing, there's a reason. But I always said, like, the money part, working the money part, I enjoyed, because to me, it's like, if you lose your wallet or your paycheck, you worked hard for that. It's hard to get the cash back.
Right.
But you lose the dope, that just keeps on coming out of the mill. They keep on producing it. So, you just kept on pushing forward. But it was overwhelming. And, you could always find something to do.
So you worked for U.S. Customs, which is interesting, because you guys were really on the front lines of a lot of the seizures, seizing a lot of the cocaine. What were some of the more inventive ways people actually got the cocaine into Miami from presumably Colombia, Peru, that it had a channel, I know that, but like how would people get the product to, or try to get the product to, into Miami?
Well, I always say, there's a will, there's a way. But a lot of things that people didn't understand, like with customs, like I would say, oh, I'm with customs. They would say, what airport you work at? Those are the inspectors. We were criminal investigators, special agents, and we worked the street where they're working the airport. But I mean, between money and dope, dope, was coming in. They were doing airdrops. They were using different countries as transshipment points. The Venezuelan, Colombian border, things were coming across, bringing them in cargo containers. They'd come in an airdrop, small boats through the Bahamas, concealment. There was just so many ways. And then once they got here, like what we call the stash houses, they had the caleta, it was called. My Spanish isn't too good. It's about as good as my Italian. But, you would see false walls. You would see false compartments in cars. And that, we always worked together really well. I always said on an agent-to-agent basis, detective to agent basis, like with DEA, with ATF. I worked with a guy, Larry Lovelace. He was just great, and we were able to, share things and try to get the job done. But there was just so many ways each week. There'd be another seizure. Oh, we just found, let's say, outbound currency going out in refrigerators, or even body carries. They had body carries coming in, internal, they used to call them, where they would, have the cocaine packed in condoms, and then they would come in and then excrete them afterwards. The problem is sometimes they blew up, they opened up, and it was just amazing. Like, you could go on and on with that.
And you even, in your book, you say that it came in cruise ships, actually, right?
Yeah, I actually started working cruise ships other than the inspector's work. And I said, you know what? There got to be more than just, nickel bags coming off. It wasn't the large amounts because of the, the concealment area and the amount of people. So, at one time we arrested the whole Calypso band from Carnival Cruise Lines. The whole, I ruined their weekend, and, it was just amazing. Like, we didn't know, we were sitting on it. We had some information, and, you always think you're shrewd, and there's always somebody that's shrewder. And these guys, it's 85 degrees, 90 degrees. I didn't even think of it. They're walking off with like jackets on. Like, why do they have jackets on? Somebody said, that's them, get them. We stopped them because you have unlimited search authority. And sure enough, they had it all taped to their bodies. It was 10 kilos, which was a lot for a seaport case. If it was coming in on a freighter, you could get anywhere from 100 to 1,000 kilos. Man. So I just I figured those are good. You hit the little guy, hopefully they'll cooperate to get to the next level.
Yeah. So Bob.
Oh God, I knew. Laura and I are going to be in a fist fight by the end of this, but no, I'm kidding.
No, right. So Bob, if they make a movie out of your book, who's going to play you?
Probably Fred Gwynn, but he's dead.
We were thinking
Gwynn.
Vince Vaughn.
No, we were thinking, we thought Vince Vaughn.
Yeah, because they're both 6'5".
Yeah, exactly.
That's what we thought.
We love Vince Vaughn.
Because Joe got Johnny Depp. Great casting.
Yep.
Can't beat it, right?
Yeah, great casting.
I should be so lucky.
Right? We think Vince Vaughn. We'll push for that. We're going to push for this to get made into. I think it would be a phenomenal movie.
Oh, I think so too.
Really, in sports and it's. I love the backdrop. I love the chat. Everyone should go out and get this book. And the chapter title, I love the chapter names.
It's amazing.
Very, very well done.
You know, that's one question that I had. You guys met in 1990, and so I that's what I read. I don't know if that's
somewhere around there.
Yeah. And so Bob, Joe, did you approach Bob and say, "Gosh, you know, your stories would make a great book," or Bob, did you approach Joe and say, "Hey, look, I have a book in me about this stuff"? Like, how did the genesis of your book come about?
I think he always had in the back of his mind that he wanted to do a book, and the last few years, you know, we just kicked it. Not, you know, it was his idea, and I backed him on. I think you should compare it with your basketball.
Yeah,
your life in law enforcement, because you were such a good basketball coach, and you were such a good customs agent with all the good work you did, and see how it, you know, show how it crossed over, you know.
You see in the book too how basketball and law enforcement, your careers both kind of, you weave them together really well in the book too, where it works really well. You can
and I have to say this and give him credit. He wrote this book himself.
Yep, it's great.
I tell everybody I couldn't even do a term paper in college, but you know, I just did it. But what happened is, you know, you got to give credit where credit is due. And I had a couple other names for my book. You know, one was going to be Fed Up, but that's kind of negative. You know, the other one I thought would be like Follow the Bouncing Badge. I had a little niche to it. Yeah. My son Rob, who owns a big sock company, said, "Dad," he said, "inside both courts." I'm like, wow. Like he just came up with it like this, you know? And I'm like, wow, it has a little kick to it. So during the pandemic, I was writing things over the years, putting things down. I always saved a lot of pictures, even before cell phones in the jail, you know, corrections, both jails. I started with customs, even basketball photos I had back from the 70s, you know, with the short shorts on.
Yeah.
And,
I love pictures in books.
Yeah.
You.
So during the pandemic, I just cleaned out our dining room since nobody's home, and I made it my little office, and I started writing. And what happened was, you know, I'm a typical regular guy, I would say. I get on my computer, I would type, and let's just say I spelled your name wrong. By the time I hit Shift, Alt, Delete, everything was gone. So I was losing it. So I had to call Joe, and I said, "Joe, give me some advice." He said, "Get a pad and pencil, start writing things down." Boy, it was so much easier because if I spelled something wrong, you erase it, cross it out, keep on going. So I said, you know what? So I don't get, you know, brain freeze. Did about 8 pages, which was a lot. I tried to do almost a chapter a day. I really didn't. Now what I did was a former basketball player of mine, Joe Lopez, was playing pro basketball over in Spain. I said, "Joe, you know, I'll pay you a few bucks. I'll scan some documents every, you know, couple of, you know, days. You do it, and you would send them back to me." So I started accumulating it, and then I would send, let's say, maybe I did, let's just say 20 pages. I give it to Joe, and Joe's first words were, "Don't take it personal. We're going to, you know, to help me." And I didn't, you know, because he's written enough books and he's a lot wiser with that. And we sat there and I would change things, you know, add this, take this out. And it kept on getting bigger and bigger. Another former assistant coach of mine told me, hey, he'd just written a book. He hired this lady that was an editor. Her name was Alexis Burns. She was great. And all her job was to do the font, put it in order, you know, and really, it's hard when you don't understand the lingo. You know, if we use little terminologies, like for instance, you know, we seize money. We use an expression, "Oh, we ripped somebody last night," which actually cost me an internal affairs investigation once. But you know, things like that. So she did all of that, and then as we progressed, we would, you know, he would look at it. Okay, too much again. Put this, and I just kept on doing it, and I would send it back to him until finally it came to fruition.
I love that you have a glossary of terminology in the book.
And the font is very big.
That's for all us guys over 40 and retired.
Yes.
I mean,
a lot of compliments on that.
It's very helpful. And I think the terminology, you know, I married into a big NYPD family. So I'm actually used to this terminology because it's like thrown around in like, you know, they yell like CO and these terminology, you know, it's regular in the McDonald's family.
They go on the gate, you know, things like that.
Yeah, on the job and all that stuff. I'm used to it, but but for most people, it's pretty new.
Well, if I might say one thing, your brother-in-law was a hero in New York and in the NYPD, and
Yes, he
we
was.
thank God for guys like him.
Yes, thank
Yeah,
you
we
for
do.
mentioning him. Yes, he truly was.
And you too, you both had jobs that put your own lives on the line.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
you both had families at the time. And maybe what were some of the scarier moments for both of you? I mean, take charge,
yeah, we could. Yeah, Joe. I don't even Joe. Joe. I've heard yours. It's terrifying.
Yeah, but maybe
maybe
our listeners.
I want to hear them again. But
yeah,
Bob.
In the 6 years, in 6 years undercover, and when you're with a violent group, you're going to get into confrontations. You're going to get into people don't like you, not because they think you're an undercover agent, you're a cop. They just don't like you. I mean, it's like in real life, people don't like everybody.
Right.
It's not a kumbaya world. I had several close calls. One of the guys that I was with in the Bananos didn't like me, was jealous of me. And there are certain things in the mafia that'll get you killed, and one of them is stealing money from the family. So in the beef that we had, he made the allegations that I stole $250,000 from the family, and that called for a sit down. And what that is, it's in mob terms, a sit down is a meeting, and it's like a trial basically. And the accuser has his people that lie for him, and then the accused has his people, and then they have a mediator, which is a jury in real life, and you present your case. Each side presents their case, and then the mediator decides who's telling the truth.
Crazy.
And it's not like you have evidence; you have to rely on your credibility.
Well, yeah, you got to rely on your credibility. You got to rely on like this individual. He had other mobsters that lied and said that they were there when I took the money. They knew I took the money, et cetera, et cetera. But I was lucky that now that happened 3 times. I won all 3 sit downs. But what you have to remember is that if you lose a sit down in this situation, you're going to get killed, because one of the rules in the mafia is that'll get you killed is stealing money from the family. That's one of the rules. And there's no appeal system. If the mediators sided with the other side, then you don't leave there alive. So, but that was just 3 of them.
Wow. I thought it was interesting. I heard you mention in the podcast that among the rules that can get you killed is you're not allowed to touch a made man. I thought that.
That's a very important rule.
And I never had heard that. So
yeah,
if you get in an argument with a made man, you can stand up for yourself, but you're not allowed to touch them.
And if you insult him in front of other people,
right, that can get you killed too. You can embarrass him in front of other people.
That can get you killed. And again, you're in this verbal confrontation, and he gives you a slap. You can't retaliate, because once you put your hands on him, in that type of situation, he has the right to kill you. And again, when you're in deep cover like that, you're going to get into verbal confrontations with people, and you're going to get into physical confrontations. You just got to hope that the physical one isn't a made guy. You can retaliate against anybody that's not a made guy, even though he's associated with the family. So I got into a couple situations where I got into verbal confrontations. I got one with two guys. One was a made guy, one wasn't. And you can't say after it's over, you can't say I'm sorry, because they don't understand that, because you have to maintain your respect and credibility. So what I did was I just clocked the guy that wasn't a made guy. I mean, that's the only way you maintain your credibility and respect. So yeah.
And
Bob,
yeah, I was gonna say, how about you, Bob?
Yeah.
Well, I think, being a correction officer really
Has to be
opened my
very
eyes.
serious, yeah.
And we were back then in 1980, we got hired, we were called 2-day wonders. 2 days in the academy and right into the jail. And at the time they put us in Greenhaven State Prison, which is a pretty rough jail.
2 days? That's unbelievable.
Yeah, well, you know what? You learn your job. And I will tell you, like I said earlier, working in a jail really helped me further my career. You're with convicted murderers, rapists, robbers, drug dealers. You learn a lot about the body language, the lingo. You learn how to speak. You also learn that your best weapon in jail is your mind. Like, how do I respond back to them? What do you say? And that definitely set the tone for me. I mean, even in basketball, and I'm not comparing my players to inmates, although we did have a few, but just the way to react. Like, it's like being a parent. One kid needs a hug. One kid needs your credit card, and the other one needs a kick in his butt. So, you learn that way. But I know as a city correction officer, when I became a city correction officer a year later, I had a special housing unit, which was called the Bing, but it was really called, I think it's called punitive segregation or whatever. It was the worst of the worst. And I had basically, if there was 14 cells, I think 12 were cop killers. The other 2 were really bad. Across from them, I had, what they called the snitches, and we had cops that got locked up. So I had one point, I had a major confrontation with a known Black Liberation Army cop killer. And this was, back then I was about 275. I was a lot bigger. I'm a pretty big guy. I'm 6'5". And, you have to, that's the thing, we have to think fast. Because, in Joe's situation, it was credibility. It's basically the same, just in another type of environment. Like, I back down, every inmate's going to think I'm a chump. They're going to get over on me. And that's not who I am. I never was. And we kind of went at it verbally. And finally, I was giving him the answers that he didn't expect to hear. And then finally after that, my final saying to him was, I told him, I said, you may be a cop killer here and a hero among all these inmates. But I said, well, you go where I just came from, Greenhaven, you're just a number. And he looked at me, and it was like, remember the movie Brubaker with Robert Redford?
Yeah,
Sure. Banging on the bars. They were going Starkman, the whole floor. Yeah. So, you learn from that. There's been confrontations, physical confrontations where you have to, as they say, use enough force necessary to effect an arrest. And, the whole idea is, and it's in any job, I don't care if you're a fireman, you're a cop, whatever you do, even a cab driver, you want to come home at the end of the day. And, you have to use your brain. And I'd like to say, they definitely, and I could say it 1,000 times, that those 2 jobs, working in Greenhaven and the Queen's House of Detention, really educated me in so many ways for my law enforcement furtherance career and basketball as well.
And you both in both of your books and in the movie Donnie, Brasco as well, you both have humorous moments that come up too. I actually found on YouTube, Forget About It, the clip about Forget About It. So Joe, I got to ask you, was that real? What does Forget About It mean?
Forget about it. Just means forget about it,
You're so much better at saying it than me.
Yeah, the New Englanders don't say it quite as well.
So what does it mean? What does Forget About It?
Well, it just means, just forget about it. Don't, you can deal with it. You can't, somebody, hey, Bob, look at these 2 good looking women we're having a podcast with.
I'm jumping through the screen.
Bob says, forget about it. And that means, yeah, they are. Look at these 2 good looking women, or you can see somebody, some individual that's not too good to look at. And you say, oh, forget about it. And it's like, yeah. So it can go either way.
but I think it should go this way.
What is that?
Forget
Oh,
about
forget
it.
about it. Oh, I want one. I want one. I love
The
it.
only one.
Oh,
We could trade. I'll see how much eBay offers me for it.
I love it. And Bob, what about you? There must have been humorous moments.
Well, I mean, I have a chapter in my book which I call Inside Both Court Bloopers, which is similar, like to the basketball. So I have stories from from coaching, things that were said, and in law enforcement. I mean, there's been so many, even in jail, what comes out of people's mouths. It's like, when you're taking a count, that means, doing the, making sure we're taking a head count. So, you always get some wise ass and I remember, okay, on a count, that means, they got to stand up. Some guy yells, on a count of what? I said, on a count, I said, so I'm coming down this tier right now. Just little things, I've had basketball players say things to me, you got to read the book. All the listeners, read the book. That'll be one of the funniest chapters in there,
Yes, it is.
And I saved them over the years, and thank God I have a really good memory. But, just things come out like you would never expect.
And I really love the way you are really like a mentor, almost a father figure to your players, and you expect them to behave in a certain way and to talk and
have some respect,
have some self-respect.
Yeah.
If I can interject, you are 100% correct in that statement, because anytime I'm down here and it's basketball season and I'm down visiting Bob and I go to his games, I see the way the players treat him and respect him. And then I've also know how many players that have been out of school 5-6 years keep in touch with him. Keep in touch with him.
So important.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's such a huge role. And I know athletes who are, our age, who we grew up with, and their coach really is like a family member to them. It has had a huge impact on their life. And I think that's just an enormous responsibility and role. And I'm in awe of that.
Me too.
Absolutely. To have, a lot of young men and women don't have that
structure
or that father figure.
Yep.
And then, to come in and to fulfill that role is just so important.
Absolutely. I have to tell you guys one funny story because I've been a PI for 21 years. I've gone into prisons many, many, many times, friends with some of the COs actually up here and stuff like that. But myself and the attorney were interviewing a client one time, and he was up on pimping charges. And this guy was hilarious. And he was so outraged. He was like, I am not a pimp. I am a straight up drug dealer. Like, he was outraged, that anybody would smear his name like that. It was so funny. I was like, I think this guy's being honest, actually, because anyway, you do get these funny, gallow humors kind of moments in this business.
People would not believe it unless you're in the field. You could tell some stories, and it's just, where do they come from?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think it's interesting too, the way you have to I must have to compartmentalize it and keep it separate and then go home and live your life. In order to, otherwise it must be too all consuming.
Well, it's like anything else, they always say you take a job home with you, and it's like, there's so many better moments that I felt in my career than the moments when, you're accused of something and it was probably somebody else. Just, we used to refer to them as rats.
Right.
And it was very interesting, just reading some of my reviews that I got, talking about who's real and who's not, what guys are saying, the guys that work together were the real guys, and there's always rats. So guys that were, it's even in sports, overzealous, and, guys that are, even, it seems like when you do something right, people think you're doing something wrong. You know what I mean? And if you're just not winning and you're not doing nothing, then you're okay. But no, I always felt I had a job. There's a certain time to play and there's a certain time to, kick back. Playing means working. And that's the same way like I was in coaching. And I try to use that, my attitude was, basketball. You go out, you want to win some games, You want to make people succeed. You play because at the junior college, they have 2 more years after they leave. You don't want to see anybody get hurt. You want to win a few games. In law enforcement, to me, it was the same thing. You go out, you work a case. It's like planning for a game. You got to have your, it's like your scouting report is kind of, your intelligence report. You don't want to get hurt. You know what I mean? And I definitely, never lied in court. So that means I never cheated. I never cheated in basketball. And you have to look that way. And if you lose, you come out again, you plan, and you go at it again. And that was my whole, attitude on inside both courts.
It's great. You guys are, you both, it's amazing to meet individuals who have had such an impact on these two major things. I mean, you've got mob in New York and the cartel drug infested Miami, and you both have done an amazing job.
Which leads me to my next question, because to both of you, I'm curious. How have you seen it change? So, Bob, what do you think? I mean, do you think it's changed that much in Miami, or has it just gone undercover?
Well, I think, and again, this is my personal opinion, it's hard to say. I know like my generation, I'm sure Joe's, and, we all took these jobs because it's something we wanted to do. I always wanted to become a New York City police officer.
Right.
And what I did to get there, and it never happened, and it was going to happen the 3 days before I graduated the Customs Academy in October. But I think, I don't know, like with the politics, everything has changed. We had that merger where, we were just U.S. Customs, and then it became Homeland Security, and we merged with immigration. It was ICE at first. And I think sometimes, you're taking away from what, you really do. You know what I mean? Like Customs, and I say this even with Joe next to me, a lot of people used to leave their agencies to come to Customs. They really did. I mean, we had FBI come over, we had ATF, and not that people didn't leave Customs, but a lot of people came to our agency because it was a wide, we had a wide variety of jurisdictional, investigations. But I'm not sure if like this generation really took a job for the right reasons, which I thought were my right reasons. I think after 9/11, a lot of things definitely changed, what the, priorities were. And, I always joke, I say that, after 9/11, I think the traffic has really made out because everybody focused on terrorism, and it's just weird because I also was assigned to the FBI for 5 years. A lot of people don't know that as the agent over there prior to 9/11 and after.
But I was going to ask you, how did you say in your book, how did 9/11 affect, what were the changes after 9/11? Because you said it was more, the agencies weren't sharing information as well with each other.
Well, I think it opened up, more with the, after 9/11, more with the intelligence agencies. And again, I can only speak for myself. I always had great rapport with, if I work with DEA, FBI, I mean, I was there for 5 years. DEA agents I worked with, that's me. But once it gets past a certain level, politics do step in. But
prior to that, there was a policy, not a policy, was it a memorandum?
A memorandum.
Yeah. That criminal people couldn't share, or the intelligence community couldn't share information with the criminal side
of the case.
So, I mean, how crazy was that?
I think it made us more vulnerable to being attacked, frankly.
Of course.
I mean, if they had been able to get together and say, hey, guys, we've got this guy and he's, flying planes and not learning how to land, it's weird. Sure. You know what I mean? Well,
and again, I think a big thing too, and Joe and I are very good friends, and I highly respect him as a friend, and more so as an agent as well. But I remember reading in Randy Jurgensen's book, Circle of Six. He was a retired guy. How Joe, everybody would always say the feds, they don't work with everybody. But again, that's on a one-on-one basis, and he got high praise from Randy Jurgensen, who was a top-notch detective, years back. And I think, like I always got along with everyone myself, and that made our jobs easier. There's a certain way of doing things. It's not breaking the law, but like, I learned from a friend of mine, Tommy O'Keefe at Metro Day. He used to go like this to me all the time. one hand washes the other. And at the end of the day, your goal is to put a bad guy away. Press conferences, we don't get on press conferences. Our job is to put him away. And again, I equate that with winning a big basketball game,
And Joe, what about you? So you said when you went in to infiltrate the mob, they controlled everything in the country. And that's not the case anymore. Would you say? I mean, they've lost that power?
Yes. In the U.S., I'm talking about the American Mafia.
Right.
Okay. Through all the investigations we've done, when I say we, I'm talking about the FBI and other federal agencies, we have basically broken the back of the American Mafia. They don't control the major unions anymore. They may control a union here or there.
Right.
They don't control interstate commerce anymore like they used to. They don't have the control over politicians that they used to, judges, law enforcement. So, yeah, I mean, are they still involved? Of course, but not on the grand scale that they did back in the day. What's overtaken them now, from what I know, are the Albanian mob, the Russian mob.
Scarier than the Italian mob, aren't they?
Way more violent than
Right.
the American Mafia. If the American Mafia had any saving grace or whatever, anybody that got killed by the American Mafia was in business with them.
Right.
They don't kill citizens, They kill their own, or they kill an individual that's been in business with them and screwed them in a deal or something. Where these other organized crime groups, they'll kill anybody. Doesn't make any difference.
So the crime hasn't gone away. It's just been picked up by somebody else.
Exactly. Exactly.
We could talk to you guys for hours. Do you have another question, Laura? I just,
I'm ready to fly down to
I am
Florida.
so ready.
Weather's nice. It's severe and clear. It's about 85.
To Wolfie's on North Miami Beach and have some.
She's such a Miami girl.
Well, we stay away from Miami Beach for the next few weeks. They're having trouble down there now.
Well,
I know.
I'll tell you a funny story. I was telling Laura before we talked to you guys to this question of whether there's still cocaine around Miami. I went down there a month ago, and so I had some young guy come up to me and go, like, Colombian, and I was like, I'm blonde. Like, what? Like, I don't look Colombian. Like, what the hell?
She didn't get it.
I didn't get it till the second one was like Colombian. I was like, okay, yeah, no, I'm not interested. I'm good. Thank you very much.
That's Colombia.
Yeah.
Well, when I was at University of Miami, I mean, students were getting busted for sending cocaine back to their hometowns because it was half the price. And these were wealthy college students, doing stuff like that because it was and it was just getting cracked down on in the late 80s, early 90s. And this was starting to really occur because of the price differential. And Miami was still, people from East Coast schools were going to Miami, and it was happening a lot.
Yeah, I bet. What is next for both of you? Bob, you have just come out with this great book. And so where can our listeners find this book then?
The book is on Amazon. It's called Inside Both Courts.
Yeah, we'll hold it up right here. Everybody should. This is
I got it here too, see?
I mean, if you like law enforcement, if you like basketball,
it's really,
if you just want a great story, I mean, it's all here. It's really, really fascinating. And we have Joe's book here too.
It is right there.
One of Joe's books.
Well,
Joe's many books.
I'm not holding it. You're better at holding it.
Better at. Yeah. This is the Donnie Brasco.
Yeah, that's the first one, Donnie Brasco. Never could have left in the Mafia.
And this was my first day I met Joe. See that? And I'm the cover school.
I know. Look at this. I even have it signed.
Yeah, but you don't got one.
Yeah, it's just to Laura though. Joe.
I know.
I mean,
Well,
we're gonna have to come down there and have coffee with you guys at Coral Springs.
Yeah, exactly. We'll get you real good books.
That's right.
And Joe, what's next for you?
Well, we mentioned the podcast, Deep Cover, the Real Donnie Brasco. Production company's Jam Street Media, but you can get it anywhere where you get your podcast. I also have another podcast, which it's not mine, but I'm the second season. There's a podcast out called The Undercovers, and the first season was with Eddie Follis, who was retired DEA agent, did a lot of undercover work, and the second season is going to be Unfinished Business, Donnie Brasco, and they're just editing that now, and I think we got 9 or 10 episodes, but it's it's narrated by Ed O'Neill. You know Ed O'Neill, the actor.
Oh, yeah, I love Ed O'Neill. Yeah.
Great.
Also by Ray Liotta.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm looking forward to that one.
yeah.
I think they're looking for like May, maybe.
Nice.
And again, we
Nice.
encourage everyone to get both of your books and to listen to your podcast, because it really is fascinating. I mean, I just binged on your podcast, and it was, they just
Thank
flew
you.
by. I mean, it's so fascinating. I mean, I was on the edge of my seat, and I can't imagine that was your life.
Yeah.
Tell your listeners.
We are actually.
Yeah.
We'll put up a link on our Facebook page so everybody can check
Thank
it
you. I
out.
appreciate
Because
that.
I hadn't heard of it before, so I really want to spread the word.
And I got to just say, this is such a, we're both total crime heads. And this is, usually we really do cover, pretty, what would you say? Our crimes.
Yeah, we cover kind of like fancy crimes.
Yeah.
Ivy League crimes. So this
That's
is
down and dirty, huh?
Yeah, where it's like, why do the super privileged, make the worst decision a human being can make, kind of thing.
But this is really fascinating, and we got to rewatch the movie, which was, and we didn't even mention that. Bob's in the movie. Did we mention that?
Yeah.
But if you sneeze, you'll miss me.
Yeah. Well, still, you have you're.
Hey, I've been trying to ride on his coattails for years. Now, now people say, hey, they go Bob Starkman. They got Joe Pistone's on with Bob Starkman. It's not like Bob Starkman's on with Joe,
Right now, Bob. Yeah, now Joe's riding on your coattails.
Yeah.
So if you get a movie made, which
you understand? I'm slipping him like $5. Hey, Joe, mention me. Like that's what talking.
Hey, Vince Vaughn, I see it.
Yeah, see,
I
Vince
totally
Vaughn.
see it. The real Miami Vice.
And
I
then
see it.
you can get Joe a walk-on part in your movie.
Yeah, I'll give him a little more. He could be like the executive director, consultant.
Right.
Yeah.
Give him a little production credit.
Right. Joe will play Mark Wahlberg instead of Mark Wahlberg would play Joe. The Boston guy, right?
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, you guys, thank you so much. What an honor.
An
Absolute
absolute
honor.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having us.
Yes, this is more than a pleasure.
Enjoy. Be careful.
Oh my God, guys. Joe, can my brother say hi to you real quick? He's literally during this entire interview, he's been telling me your life story. He was just listening to the podcast.
I'm gonna hit disconnect.
Come here, Tom. Come here, bud.
Okay.
Here, say hi to Joe.
You want to get
Hello.
Hey.
I just wanted to say I'm a huge
Still here,
fan. I've been
I'm
following.
not hugging him yet. Don't worry.
Watched you on Michael Francese's podcast the other day. Joe didn't tell me that you were going to be doing this. He said he was going to set this up and then we could go do our thing. And as soon as I saw you pop on the screen, I was like, you kidding me? I'm not going anywhere. I just want to say you're an American hero. I'm a huge fan of yours, and God bless.
Well, thank you.
Joe, you got to have your brother listen to his podcast and read Bob's book.
Yeah, he was literally just listening to the podcast the other day. Literally, he's literally been telling me his whole entire life story during this interview. and you're telling stories and he's telling me details about it that you've left out.
Oh,
And you got to get him.
Huge fan.
We'll get him Bob's book too, because he'll love Bob's book.
How's that sound?
Yeah.
You guys, this is our one. Like Joe is our wonderful editor. He puts up with us, all of our nagging, all of our. Oh my God.
He's like our Charlie. Where's
I know, guys. Right? There could be worse things in life.
Exactly.
So, yeah, we're doing okay.
I even made a song for him based on "Hey Joe." So the Jimi Hendrix, and I sang it.
Right.
Okay,
Yes,
so
there you go.
yeah. Anyway, what a pleasure.
Yes.
Yeah, And we are coming down there.
Right.
We are,
Let us
yes.
know. Yeah, let us know.
Well,
I'll show
definitely.
you I'll show you all the famous spots where all the big dope deals took place. I'll even show you a spot where Joe told me he stole cars from.
Oh my God, I love it.
We don't just say that. We actually will.
We
yeah,
will,
we are
will.
coming down.
We
yeah.
will. I kid you not. I'm looking for a place in Miami, like a winter getaway, kind of thing. So yeah, we'll definitely connect if we come down there. That would be awesome.
Awesome. And we'll send you. We'll email you a copy of this when it's edited.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And this has been such an honor. And I have Bob's number, so I can